Good morning, Guidely fam, or evening, depending what part of the world you're in. I'm here today with Brandon Bays. Diagnosed in 1992 with a tumor the size of a basketball, Brandon embarked on a remarkable, transformational, and ultimately liberating healing journey. She uncovered a deceptively simple, comprehensive method to get direct access to the soul, to the boundless healing intelligence that lies inside each of us. Welcome, Brandon. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
I'm thrilled that you're doing this. It's so needed at this particular time so that people get access to all kinds of tools, methods, and teachings during a time when we most need it. So I just am delighted to be here on Guidely and to welcome everyone with all my heart.
It's so nice to have you. You know, when I looked at your website a few weeks ago or a month ago, I was unfamiliar with your work, and your story is truly remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it stopped me in my tracks. Like, how do you go from a tumor the size of a basketball to where you are now? I mean, that's like, I'm mind blown.
Well, it's interesting. It was a very big journey for me, as you can imagine, because at that time I was at the cutting edge of what was happening in the personal growth and the health field. And I was certified in so many different areas. And the last thing I expected to have happen was to get this massive tumor. And part of the gift of my own healing journey was I found a method for all of us to go on our own healing journey. And it's about dealing with what we call cell memories and emotions and what we know. Even if you get on the Center for Disease Control's website, and we all know that, I mean, it's splashed over the news right now. And the CDC, it says that 85% of all illness has an emotional basis. And the reason that they say that is because of all the work going on in the field of cellular healing. And what we know is that when you feel a strong emotion and you repress it, it releases in your bloodstream a quantifiable biochemistry, which will go to certain cell receptors and block those cells, rendering those cells incapable of communicating with the rest of the cells in the body. And if over time illness happens, of course it happens, where the cells are blocked. And conversely, what's also known to be true is that when we feel our emotions very freely, very naturally, like a child does, our cell receptors remain open, and they can watch this in a laboratory. And so there's a very strong role that our emotions play, that when we shut them down, that biochemistry is released. And what we know about the cells inside the body is they're all replicating at varying speeds. So, for instance, if you're listening now and you've ever had a suntan, you've probably noticed that after about 3 weeks' time, your old cells slough off and your tan fades, and they're placed by new regenerative cells. This process of regeneration is going on throughout your body. So, for instance, it takes 3 days for your stomach cells, 6 weeks for the liver cells to completely replicate and be reproduced. The one that blows my mind are the eye cells, because when you touch your eyes, they feel quite firm, don't they?
Yeah.
But in less than 48 hours, in less than 2 days, you will have an all new inner eyeball. I mean, this was so incomprehensible to me that the only way I could put it into a context was when my mom had one of those, operations that are very common, where they slit the eye open, insert a lens, put the flap back on, and put a patch on. And only a day and a half later, not even 2 days later, a day and a half later, she had the patch taken off and she could see clearly. As a matter of fact, there won't be a single molecule in your body a year from now that was here today. But at the time that I had the tumor, there was a huge amount of research going on in this field of cellular healing. And Dr. Deepak Chopra at that time was a forerunner. And he decided, at that time, he was actually a chief surgeon general in a hospital in Boston. But he decided to do something that no one else in this field was doing. He decided that he would amass case studies of people who had healed without drugs or surgery. And he found that in amassing hundreds and ultimately thousands of case studies, he could only find that people had two qualities in common. One was that through some act of grace or spontaneous event, they actually got access to this that he called the infinite intelligence, the part of you that makes your heart beat and your eyes shine and your hair grow. And the second thing that they had in common was they got access somehow spontaneously to these cell memories. And if somehow in going inside the body and getting access to these cell memories, they somehow spontaneously released what was there, let go of the old consciousness. When the new cells were born, they were born devoid of that old consciousness as new regenerative cells. And so I was at the cutting edge of what was happening in this whole field of complementary medicine. And obviously I'd studied with Chopra, but I got to tell you something. You can know all the science on the planet. You can understand how cellular replication happens and how programming gets passed on from one cell generation to the next to the next. But unless you have a method, it's no more than, some pretty words of inspiration on a page. And that's where I stood when I had the tumor. And the great gift of my own healing was I found a method through quite a life-changing, radical spiritual journey for all of us to go on our own journeys inside of our bodies in a very real way, in a very practical way, get access to these old cell memories stored inside the cells inside your body, and go through a deep process of release and letting go and forgiveness. And ultimately, when the new cells are born, they're born devoid of that old consciousness as new regenerative cells. And so these days I'm working with medical doctors all around the world. As a matter of fact, the journey is being used in 2 hospitals in Tel Aviv, where after you've gone, let's say there's cancer and you've gone through your operation, you'll spend a week in a recovery center where they will help you to get to the emotional corollary of what co-created the illness. So, and also there's another hospital that when you have a heart operation, they do the same thing, because they know, as the CDC has said, that 85% of all illness has this emotional basis. And so that was the huge gift of my own healing journey, is that, and the work, of course, over 26 years and now 28 years since then, it's obviously increased. It's a living, breathing teaching where it's expanded, it's deepened, and I've also seen what works, and I've also seen what doesn't work. And so the work is developed and become hugely user-friendly so that they do feel they can use it in a hospital, and obviously for people from all walks of life. And so that's in a nutshell what the journey is and what my journey was. So
amazing. So, you talk so much about the emotional cause of illness, and I'm curious what you feel the emotional cause of your tumor was at that time.
Well, at that time, as I've written in the book, and by the way, I just want those of you that are watching to know that original book, The Journey, that I wrote, many years ago, it is available free of charge online. For you, if you get on thejourney.com, you can download that and undergo the whole journey with me, and ask to download the newest up-to-the-minute process scripts. I really seriously want every human being to get access to this work. And so anyway, you were asking, what did I feel really was the emotional root cause? And when I first got inside the tumor, and as a therapist in life, and I'd also been through 8 years of therapy on this issue in New York City.
Okay, hang on. When you say God inside the tumor, do you mean sent your consciousness inside the tumor? Or
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Your awareness goes to wherever the cellular location is. And I opened with what was stored there. And the cell memory that spontaneously arose was of me at very young and childhood abuse. Now, of course, as a therapist, you can imagine that I've done years of therapy on, all the violence. And it was quite brutal in my childhood. And my arrogant know-it-all thinking mind said, it can't be this issue. You've been there, done that, got the t-shirt on that issue. You've come to a place of acceptance of this childhood abuse. You've come to understand it, accept it, and you've put it all behind you. And that was what my thinking mind was saying. But my body and my soul were saying, well, Brandon, you've got nothing to lose by really releasing what's stored here. And so I went through a process that was very similar to many other processes I'd done in my life. And I arrived at the same place of acceptance that I had been at most of my adult life. And I asked the peace that I was just resting in, am I complete? And the simple word no arose. And I fell into a place of devastation. And I just thought, you know what? I don't even believe this is the right cell memory. But even if it is, I don't know how to complete. And something inside of me just let go. I just surrendered and I just gave up. I gave up fighting. I gave up trying to figure it out, trying to analyze it, fix it, change it. I just let go. And I fell into a huge field of presence, of awareness, of peace. And when I was resting in this huge ocean of light, another prayer arose. Please, how? How to complete? I actually didn't expect an answer. At the most unexpected moment, the word forgiveness was here. And immediately, my know-it-all expertise of, being a therapist in life, I said, oh, what difference could forgiveness make? And my mind was saying that, but my body and my heart were saying, well, you've got nothing to lose by forgiving. And when I opened my heart and attempted to forgive, it actually hurt. Because my whole life long, and at least my adult life, I'd spent the last 20 years creating this noble identity of Brandon, the compassionate therapist who'd come to understand her brutally violent past. And I had to face down 30 years of pride dressed up as compassion. And it hurt to face down that much pride. But something inside of me did that. And when I humbly, genuinely opened my heart and wholeheartedly forgave, I realized that tumor had never been clinging to me. I'd been clinging to it. And I realized at that point that 30 years of a blame game, dressed up as understanding and compassion, that it was finally over. Now, this was 3 weeks into my healing journey. And during the next 3.5 weeks, before I ended up going back to hospital and having all the scans done, I ended up doing these journey style processes. And each time it was a different aspect of the physical abuse that I'd been through as a child. And something wondrous happened with the forgiveness. It's almost like I let go of the story of pain. Up until that point, I understand. I carry my baggage with me, I understand, I accept. I understand what my mother was going through. She was in the Holocaust, and, then my sister drowned and her rage was out of control. I understand, But when you forgive, that's when you let go of the whole story. And you're free now to be free to live life from what's here now. And that's why it's been so healing for me. And I actually get a journey process once a week when I'm on tour. I never, ever want to be so arrogant as to say I've got it all handled. I know there's more than one issue stored inside this body. And I feel it's a privilege to clear whatever obscures me and holds me back on any level of being.
Wow. Wow. I'm like, whew. That was really impactful. I love that you say it's a privilege and you're still going through this journey once a week when you're on tour, or maybe when you're not, because when you asked, am I complete? I thought to myself, are we ever complete?
Right.
Life at this time, are we ever complete?
Do you know, I can say that wholeness is here.
Mm-hmm.
Completeness is here. But there's layers of buried things that get cleared away and you get washed clean. I just did a journey intensive online, which is a 2-day deep immersion as a retreat. And, there was one woman on there. She'd had excruciating back pain for 30 years. Excuse me.
No problem.
And she had excruciating back pain. And she couldn't even sit for more than an hour at a time. And through the course of just that whole retreat, she got to the emotional root cause of what had created that back pain. I mean, she'd had operations, she had all kinds of medical treatment, all kinds of osteopathy and chiropractic, all sorts done. And yet the pain never went away. And just in the course of undergoing the journey intensive, I can't say that she completed, was massively, massively healed. And from a place of that she was, for the first time in 30 years, out of pain. And so I love to tell other people's stories because to me, I feel that everything that happens in our life is something for our soul, our inner being, to learn from. And clearly it was her soul that brought her to the journey intensive and said, okay, it's time now to meet this wake-up call that you've gotten and really learn what it was all about and to free yourself from it. And so I love that people are at a place right now in history, and that it seems to me, I feel like the journey was only able to be born because we are at a time in history where people are willing to dive in and get to the emotional corollary of what is co-creating the physical illness. But what the journey is mostly about is not just physical healing. I'd say that 85% or 90% of the people that come to a journey intensive have no illness. It's because they feel this ache, this longing to come home. They sense there's this large potential that they can't get access to. And the journey, part of the healing process, is getting access to that infinite intelligence, that part of you that makes your heart beat and your eyes shine and your hair grow. And at that deepest level, at the level of the soul, that's where you undergo the journey work. And so it's very deep work. It's for fellow lovers of truth who are willing to get real and to roll up their sleeves and dive in and do the work. And so I always say, I ended the first book with the words, life is the journey. And it's true that, I believe our souls incarnated so that we could learn what we're here to learn in this lifetime, so that we could clear what we're here to clear and come to a place of being at home in our own skins and at peace with ourselves.
I really feel that. I was really surprised when I came across your work that I hadn't heard of it before, because your work is phenomenal and amazing. And I thought, why, we hear about other big names, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Sue Morter. Why am I not hearing about Brandon Bays here in the States? And there's a little backstory there, because in my opinion, everyone should hear about the journey and the work that you're doing. It's amazing. And the generosity on your website, the book being free. I know there's a lot of other content, but why have we not heard of you as much here in the States?
Well, it's interesting. I fell in love with a Brit. And what happened was, when I just had finished healing from the having that tumor, my house, I had a little tiny beach shack on the beach in Malibu. It burned down. And so that was in 1993. And then in 1994, my husband of 21 years, he fell in love with another woman, a much younger woman, and he ended up marrying her. And so here we are in 1994 into 1995, and all of this has taken place. And I ended up going back and forth to Britain, and I was offering this work. And at that time, I was still giving the Living Health Seminar with Tony Robbins. And so I was a presenter for Tony Robbins, and I would travel on the road with him, and he would give the weekend seminar, and I would give the 5-hour Living Health Seminar. And so anyway, I was going back and forth to Britain, and the divorce, came through, and suddenly there was a journalist who, she had a huge experience with the journey and a big healing, and she was a journalist for the Sunday Times in Britain, quite a well-known and serious newspaper in Britain. Anyway, she had a 2-page spread about her experience of healing with the journey. And suddenly it became an overnight sensation. And I ended up moving from California then to Britain. And it was while I was there in Britain, and it just was like an overnight sensation. And then I started taking it all around Britain, and I was being invited to all the cancer centers to be a keynote speaker. And then from there, I ended up writing the book while I was in Britain. And so firstly went to the Commonwealth countries, so to Britain, and then I was on tour in Australia and South Africa and China and Hong Kong. But finally, I thought I need to publish this in the United States. And so I had a wonderful publisher, Simon & Schuster, and they were going to publish the book. And by now, it was like a wildfire, went around the rest of the world, but not in the United States. Mm-hmm. And my date for it to be published and come out in all the bookshops, and it was in every bookshop in America. And I was on this huge tour of America, publicity tour, on different television shows and radio shows and whole life expos. And I was like this, 6-month tour that I was going to be doing in the United States. And the date that it was to come out was September 10, 2001. And we all know what happened September 11, 2001. No. And when the Twin Towers came down, it was like every book that was on the bookshelves from that time went into obsolete. I mean, they became obsolete, and everything that was written at that time was all about, obviously, 9/11. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is this massive book tour and television shows, every radio show, it got canceled. All my whole life expos being the keynote in all over America, they got completely canceled, as you can imagine, because it was all about, at that time, that disaster. So it became clear that I wasn't going to be able to go on that book tour. So I had to go where the rest of the world was calling. So I went back to England, and I fell in love with a Brit there, and we continued doing work. But I said to my publisher, okay, I'm going to come back in the spring. And this was autumn, as you know, and in the spring, I'm going to do another book tour. So I spent another $100,000 on getting this all organized. But what my publisher did that they didn't tell me about is they put it with a different subsidiary publisher who wasn't told that I was doing another book tour. And so I got there to America, and I would get on a television show, and woman in Vancouver would say, I've been to the library. There's a 6-week wait for your book, but I can't get it in any bookstore because they were all reclaimed, of course, and sent back to the publisher. And now I'm on a book tour without a book in the bookshop. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh,
And so this was just too much time, money, and energy spent. So then I went back to Europe, and by then it was coming out in all different languages. Right now, we travel to 39 countries in the world, and it's in 24 languages. And so I kind of had to say, I let America go for a while and just focus where there was a big thirst, because wherever I would show up, there was a big calling for the work, because people were hearing about it, reading about it, doing the work, and longing to go on my seminars. And so, up until this Corona time, I was giving a seminar every single week in a different country,
wow.
44 weeks in a year.
Oh my gosh, that's intense.
Very intense, so it's this has been quite a shock to come here, and it's actually been a beautiful revelation to me, that I've been so grateful that if Corona had happened at any time, it's happening at a time where we can connect with people, and do these virtual seminars. And I had to really stretch wide, because I've been live streaming, interviews like this and television shows, webinars, etc., since 2011, before it was ever a thing, and live streaming events. But I always saved my live seminars for interpersonal reaction. So several hundred people would be at a live event, and I would work with them, and it was a very powerful way of working. And I never ever thought I would be putting that deeply powerful and liberating work actually online, because one of the things that's the hallmark of the journey is that we have journey practitioners who have been through a year long of training and through 44 case studies, who hold an embrace for the people who are at the event. And so there'll be one trainer there, or a journey practitioner there, for every 2 couples that are working together. And so there's a huge amount of support. And I've just been so moved and blown away that it just came out when we found a platform now where all these trainers are able to come in and actually support, and they'll take you into an online breakout room where you'll be processing. And if you're having any issue or something, struggling at all, you can raise your hand and they'll come in to support you. And so this whole time period has been really a stretch for me to open into the possibility of making this work available to people around the world, but with the same huge love, the community, the embrace, and the support that you would get at a live event. And so I've been deeply moved that this is possible, and so grateful that if during Corona we all had to be isolated in our own homes, that we could still experience this liberating work.
That leads me to a question I've been wanting to ask, is really, how do you see the journey as a support tool for people right now with what's going on with Corona and global protests and loss of jobs and livelihood and relationships? Really, this is a huge shakeup on so many levels.
It is on so many levels. And what happened is we all got pent up. And one of the things that we've all learned to do in life, I don't care what country I go to, we have all developed strategies to avoid feeling our emotions. It's like, feel an emotion, smoke it away. Feel an emotion, drink it away. Feel an emotion, get on Facebook, get on Netflix. Feel an emotion, go out to the movies. Feel an emotion, let's go for a run, let's go for a swim. It's anything but feel an emotion. And I already explained to you that when you feel a strong emotion and you shut it down, it releases that biochemistry into the bloodstream, which will go to the certain cell receptors and block them. And so what's happening now in the lockdown, we can't go into all our avoidance strategies. We can't even leave the house in many countries. can't leave the house. And so suddenly, these deeply buried issues that we've been so successful and elegant at burying away, tucking away, never looking at, life is pushing our buttons big time. And jobs are being lost, as you said. We're fearful for not just our livelihood, but the uncertain, what's it going to be like once this all finishes? Will there ever be a norm again? And what about my kids? What about my, my job? And it's my health. And so it's almost like as if life is giving us countless wake-up calls, and it's pushing our buttons, and it's triggering these deeper held issues to come up to the surface, which is why as soon as I got here, I was in India at the time, giving an advanced no ego retreat. And I had to get on a plane to come back here. And I ended up in Greece. I was going to leave the next week for another country. But I ended up here in Greece 2 days before they went into lockdown. And we got here on March 14th. They'd gone into a form of lockdown on March 4th. But on March 16th, my husband and Gabby's husband, Cliff, they arrived from Australia where they were giving seminars. And we went into border lockdown where every single border was closed. And I became aware that we were one of the earliest ones to go into that kind of lockdown, but that people were pent up. And it was like a pressure cooker around the world. Mm-hmm. And so I began posting videos, clearing your worst fears, getting rid of and clearing the negative beliefs that are arising, parenting videos, how to work with your children during lockdown, nutritional videos, how to strengthen your immune system. I started working with, issues of how do I get to the root of what my deepest fears are? And people are fear of death, fear of survival. So meeting that, uncovering what's my purpose in all of this? What's my purpose in life? How do I move forward after lockdown with a sense of purpose and clarity? And so every single day I started posting videos with work on it. I also gave a 21-day healing meditation that you could undergo every day. And so I was doing everything I could to make that available for everybody. And then finally what happened after I've shot over 60 of these videos and meditations, and I even did movement sessions and yoga sessions and trauma release sessions. What we've done is we've decided to create a membership platform so that what you can do is, I know they kind of disappear when you just post them on Facebook. They just go into wherever they go, So I wanted one place where everyone could access all these free materials that are so essential during this time when we're facing all of the stuff that is deeply buried inside of us is being triggered and rising up to the surface. And so we now have that. And I'm so grateful that people can now do the work, that some of the work is lighter work. Some of it's like an hour long where you roll up your sleeves and you dive in. And you're literally facing some of the hardest issues and finishing with them. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to make that as an offering during this time so that people could know there's a place that they can go, that they can get work that even the medical field thinks is wonderful work, that psychologists use and people from all walks of life use, that they can feel safe to work with the tools. And so I obviously posted videos that are for beginners. And so, that's just my way of serving life during this crazy, wild time that we're living through.
Wow. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they're free, right?
They're all free. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so generous.
Platform. I just thought this was the most powerful and liberating work I know. I wanted to make it available. And once you're a member of the membership platform, then you'll get the other, every time I'll put this one on, actually, this interview. Go on to the membership platform. And then, if people feel, okay, I'm ready now to go on to a really in-depth retreat, then from there, you'll be able to get to that. And those are charging events. But in the meantime, you've got heaps of material to work with that, you can basically, whatever's coming up for you, have issues, things that you can work with.
Wow, thank you for your generosity. Immediately I told you I was struck when the whole book is free on your website. I downloaded it straight away. And now you sharing that you've got over 60 videos of content that's relative to what's happening now. They were all recorded since Corona started. So just a beautiful gift to us. Anything else that you would like to leave our audience with? This was amazing today. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Well, what I feel above all else is that life has given humanity a wake-up call. And it's an invitation to all of us to use this time wisely and well. And with so much beautiful work out there, what have you got to lose but some old baggage that's no longer serving you anymore? And what have you got to gain but feeling at home in your own skin, feeling at peace and coming to a place of feeling like you've opened into the truth of who you are, the full divine potential. And I like to use this time as a wake-up call for all of us to begin our own journeys, and not just mine. You're going to be here with the Guidely channel here. You're going to be having an opportunity to work with many people. And we're offering this for free. What have you got to lose? And what have you got to gain by deciding you're worth it to invest in yourself? Some time, some love, some energy to really come home to a sense of peace inside yourself. So that's the message I would like to leave them with, and just a prayer that we all make the highest and best use of this time.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes, here at Guidely, we're getting ready to launch in August our platform for personalized mentorship, coaching, guidance. And it's unlike anything that's out there, and we're really excited. There's so much going on behind the scenes as we get ready, but prime your palette with some work by Brandon. I'll drop the link in the comments, and we'll make sure that it's tagged in the post, because it's just such a generous gift to us all. And this time was as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and a heartfelt namaste to everyone.
Stay.